guest เนาะဆိုတော့ Kevin will you come up please ဆိုတော့သူ့ကိုလက်ခုပ်တီးပြီးတော့ကြိုဆိုကြရဆိုတော့ဒါ Kevin Dr. Kevin LaChapelle ဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတော့ကျွန်တော်နဲ့လည်း so we know each other for probably a decade.
Yep.
Long time ago. So I knew him like since I was probably 14. I think I say 14. Now I'm like what?
It's like 35
35 something. Okay, so I know we have you and we know each other for a while, and you've been to every like a lot of different places. I know God has been putting so many things in your heart. But one particular things I remember is that when we drove down to La Jolla Beach, you told me that God has a calling for you. So God has a calling, which is to work with the Korean people. So tell me more about that, because I know you used to be a police officer. You used to work in a different field. So
yeah. So I think when I first met the Korean, which you were one of the first guys I met, you and DeGray and Chitwe and Elde, small group of guys. You guys captured my heart because, one, I could see how much love you guys have for God, especially you.
Thank you.
So even very early on, this guy always told me he was going to be a pastor from very young.
I say a missionary, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but
he's trying to run away from his calling.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Here's the thing. So Kevin က ဘယ်လိုလဲ CEO လည်းဖြစ်တယ် company တခုမှတကယ် CEO လောက်တဲ့သူဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတော့ university မှာလည်းစတင်တာဖြစ်တယ်ဗောနော်သူဘယ်လိုမျိုး so I know you work in a clinic as a CEO, and then you also teach in the university, and then you travel in the weekend, but in the midst of that, how do you like you work really hard, but at the same time you love Lord Jesus with all your heart. So how do you manage to stay connected to Him and be in intimate relationship with Him? And how do you stay connected to His Word? I know you're very busy because you're very busy.
Yeah, but in the busyness, everything comes from Him.
Wow, that's good.
So I think when we wander off on our own, it becomes busyness. When we're staying close to Him, it becomes our purpose-driven life in the calling that He's put on our heart. So, for example, I don't get tired if I'm doing stuff that I know I'm being called to, right? Wow. Because God's doing it. We're just along for the ride.
Wow, that's amazing. So how many hours do you sleep in a day?
This is getting very personal. No, I'm just kidding. I'd say probably I usually go to bed like 11-ish. I try to be out by 11, and I usually get up at like 4 every day.
Wow.
That's just me.
Just you, so.
Yeah, that's how God made me.
So when do you get home? You wake up
10
at 4?
10:30. I wake up at I get up at 4. I go to work at 6.
Oh, you go to work at 6?
A couple nights a week till 10.
So you came back home around 10? Wow. So I'm not sure how you manage that.
I would say some of the best times I have with relationship with the Lord, especially when I'm flying. I find that I can just close my eyes and really just really connect with the Lord. I think also when I'm driving, worship songs, that always draws us close. But for me, the greatest thing is seeing God do things in my life and other people's lives. Those are the greatest things. So I think that, some people have a relationship with God where they're a spectator, but we should be in the game. We should actually be in the game, playing the game. It's a big difference.
Wow, that's amazing. And then I want to ask, not only you are like a professor, like a doctor, but you're also like an author. So I remember in your book, so I want you to talk about that miracle. Remember when you take a medical team to, is it Mexico, or where like you say when you try to shut the door when you got robbed. So I want you to tell that story. Like that's truly a miracle.
And things like that happen all the time. So to me, when we allow ourselves to be put in risky situations, if we're apart from God, we got to be scared. If we're with God, we can be confident. So this particular situation was in Tijuana, Mexico, along the border of San Diego, and it's a very dangerous area. And we had taken a group, some youth groups were there, and also some doctors, and we were setting up like a clinic. And in the nighttime, they didn't want to, I wanted us all to leave because I knew it was a very dangerous place at night. So I wanted to leave, and then they were pressuring me. We don't want to have to set everything up again. And this was a lesson I learned, that when God gives me wisdom, don't let people pressure me.
Wow.
And so I kept thinking, like, no, we should not be here. This is not good. And God gives us a brain to be wise. We can't be foolish. And so I gave in and said, all right, fine, we'll stay. And that night we got robbed at gunpoint. In Mexico, they call them banditos, and these are guys with masks on, and they call them tecatos. They're into heroin and all sorts of drugs, and they can be very, very evil and hard-hearted. And they basically came in, started pistol whipping people and robbing everybody, the entire team. It was devastating for many. Some people still are traumatized and never even want to go back to Mexico because of it. But the most profound part of it was, this was probably, all the years as a police officer, I never even contemplated, like, oh, I may not go home tonight, like I may get killed. I never even thought about those things. This was the first time when they had guns to our heads that I remember a guy standing next to me, and he said, what do you think's going to happen? And I said, just get right with God. I think we're going to meet God soon.
Wow.
And that was,
So they were pointing a gun in the head. Wow.
yeah, they were holding everybody at gunpoint and then robbing them. And then there was this one little building where all the girls were sleeping, and the door was shut. But in Mexico, a lot of times there's not locks on doors, so they just put like a rock, behind it to hold it shut, kind of a thing. And so they started going and trying to kick that door in. And the more they kicked the door in, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking they're going to rape those girls. This is going to be horrendous. And they couldn't get in. And I remember thinking to myself, I hope they don't start shooting at the door, because probably behind the door is all these girls holding the door shut.
How many of them were in there?
There was probably like 25.
25 girls?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so when they all of a sudden, I'm just praying, and I'm just like, I was actually praying, God, make it quick. Like, to be absent in the body, to be present with you. Like, don't let us suffer. If it's going to be, then let us just go. And then I remember thinking, Lord, just make these people leave, make these people leave. And it got really quiet, really, really quiet. And I was afraid to turn around because I thought they would shoot. And I remember thinking, like, I wonder what's going on in that area where the girls were at. So anyway, when we realized they actually left, we went over there. And then when I pushed the door open, I could feel the resistance of the rock. And I'm like, who was holding this door shut?
Wow.
And they said, none of us, were just praying.
Wow.
So I personally believe that God had an angel really holding that door secure, because if they would have got through that door, it would have been really bad.
Yeah.
And that's just one of many, many stories. I mean, I see stories like that in the Burma-Thai region all the time, with all of our ethnic people being attacked all the time, Burmese people being attacked by their own government right now, and God being there with them through many, many things.
Okay, so my next question is that, since like we're youth in here, so what is one thing you wish you know earlier?
Like, what do I wish I would have known?
Yeah,
sooner?
you would have known sooner, yeah, in your life.
That's a tough question. I reflect on that a lot. I used to kind of think like, oh, I wish this or that, and I've come to not do that anymore.
Okay.
Because I see everything is in God's timing. Like, there are things that I've learned now that if it happened years ago, I would not have learned it because I wasn't ready to learn it.
Okay.
And He'll bring people into our life just like the enemy will bring people into our life, and we have to discern those things.
Okay. So next question.
Our current people.
Okay.
Our
Wow.
Archon is meeting you guys. That's been the greatest growth of my whole life.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us more about your journey. I know you.
My journey?
Yeah. So, like, so when I first met you, you would do your dissertation, right?
My doctorate.
Yeah,
yep.
your doctorate. And like, how do you pursue that from being a police officer to pursuing like higher education? So,
Well,
what make you to
Well,
pursue
you have
that?
to go further back. So in high school, I hated school. I still hate school. I don't like school. It's very hard for me. So in high school, I was ADHD, so I couldn't pay attention, and I barely made it through high school. I didn't actually start college till I was in my 30s.
Wow.
And so I became a police officer because you didn't have to have a college degree. So I was like, okay, cool, I can do this because I don't need a degree. And so as a cop, that's when God started really showing me things in a deeper way. And again, I can't imagine being a cop without God. So, and I would say that about every different level of my life. In school, probably not going to be able to go to college. He'll probably be lucky. First move to San Diego from Denver was, I felt distinctly God saying, they see you through their own eyes, I see you through my eyes.
Wow.
So I think realizing that people put a limit on me and they saw me for my limitations, but God saw me for that I could let go and trust in Him, and He would do things through me. Mm-hmm. And so then you fast forward on education. How I started going to college is I was mentoring a couple guys, and they said to me, "Why not? If you're telling us to go to college, why don't you go to college?" And because I couldn't do it, I put college down. I'd say, like, you don't need that. God doesn't need that. God doesn't work that way. He doesn't need me to go to college, all those kind of things. And then they told me one time, I said, because you guys don't understand, I have a learning disability. And they said, that's a cop-out. They said, you're just using that as a crutch. And it was like self-confrontation. Like I was like, so as they journeyed through, I journeyed through. And so it wasn't a thing of like, okay, God, let me get my bachelor's. I never prayed for anything other than, okay, let's see what happens, because I didn't know what He was doing. So I think the crazy thing long-term was, I have background in law enforcement, elected as a school board member for 4 years in San Diego, healthcare, education, higher learning, and then my education is in business, and then my master's, public administration, politics, and then my doctorate, leadership. And so how I saw my destiny and my purpose collide, I always wondered, why do I have all these different career experiences? Expertise that I had is what they were telling me they needed someone to help with. And then I was like, all this time, that's what God was preparing me for.
Wow.
So that's when I was like, that's why I'm so
very
cool. But for me, it was very, very deep. So every time I feel like giving up, because it's hard to walk in my shoes, like it's hard for me to walk in your shoes, it's hard for all of us to walk in each other's shoes. But there's times I feel like giving up. And I always go back to that. No, God's not finished. Right? He created a work and He will finish. I wish you would have started at college when you're 18. And I can't wish that, because then my life, I may have never met the current people.
Yeah, true.
Further and open a door that's not meant to be open, that I fail. So I'd rather just sit back and let Him open the doors, and I'll step through them.
Wow. So now let's talk about B.
It's really hard. I mean, because there's some that probably the last trip I just got back from the Thai-Burma region in March or in May. Because it pushed me. It really pushed me to challenge, do I really trust God? Because I was on the run of having people trying to capture me because of speaking out against the Burmese generals. And there were times I started doing it in my own knowledge, in my own, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. Then I'm thinking, I'm wrestling, like, why am I trying to do this? Don't I trust that God can take care of this? Why am I trying to get ahead of Him? And then I'm starting to say, God, are you sure you got this? Do you need my help? And it was 4 days of very high intensity, and it was only by God's grace that I got out of there. But I learned more about myself. It also, in the unique situations, I was forced to be all alone without anyone around me. Oh. So it was just me and God. I couldn't rely on anyone. So I think that one has probably had the most.
You have like inspired me a lot. I know Kevin was probably the one like who, when I wrote my book, Youth on Fire, Kevin, he was like, bro, I know you can do this, so thank you for...
you impacted me through your book.
Bro, so yeah, thank you very much. So since you're like leadership, so since you graduate with leadership, so what is one of your best quote on leadership? It could be any. The best quote on leadership.
Yeah. Boy, that's a tough one. But I'm going to have one. Hold on. Let me think. I would say be careful how we treat others. because likely God's using us to help them be at their best. And if we see them for their worst and don't see them for their best, then we're going to undermine what God's trying to do. And if we will trust Him and do that, He'll bless all of us.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.